thank you guys so much. Welcome to Horror Girl Problems. We have
Thank you for
the
having
Thank you
writers.
us.
so much for having us.
Yes, writers and directors of Stuffed, which is an amazing short film. And why don't you guys tell us a little bit about it?
Well, so it's a short musical film. It's about a taxidermist who decides that she wants to find a human to stuff to complete this kind of quest for legacy and to fulfill this kind of goal of breaking the taboos of taxidermy and fulfilling her art. And she goes online and tries to find someone who wants to be stuffed and meets Bernie, who is a potentially willing participant. And it's a musical, and it's quite dark. And I think it's something that, to give you a little bit of an origin story, it comes from the original story of the German cannibal Armin Muse, who was a cannibal who searched online for someone who wanted to be eaten and met someone. And what kind of strikes you, what's kind of interesting about that story is that they meet each other and they go through with it. And there's something that kind of with this whole thing, which is like, it's kind of romantic. Like they find a way somehow of being like the only other person in the world that could possibly understand the wants and desires of that one person. And somehow they come together and find each other in this kind of wide world and fulfill each other's dreams in a kind of strange way, no matter how horrific. So that's what sort of attracted us to the story. And obviously from there, that was just a launching off point. Yeah.
I love that you describe that as romantic, because it's like one of those things where it's like, well, there's someone for everyone, right? It's just a matter of finding, but it like odds are that it exists, even if it's just the one person that gets it.
Totally. And no shame, everyone, whatever you're into.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of it was kind of a strange, it's a strange one though, because obviously there's something, dealing with like, for us transitioning the original story, which was obviously rooted in cannibalism, and moving it immediately over to something that felt a lot more palatable, taxidermy and the whole kind of quests and desires that surround the idea of taxidermy, I feel like are a lot more manageable to sort of comprehend than cannibalism. But it was still something that shocks people. Like I think I got a few emails in the casting process from people like absolutely appalled at what we were doing. And just writing I know, just being like, this is way too soon. Bear in mind the original cannibalism story happened about 15-20 years ago, like, this is way too soon. I think this is appalling. And it is amazing how these stories really affect people and really they really give people the creeps.
Right.
I think something about transferring it from like cannibalism to taxidermy as well had kind of brought in a lot of kind of more real world things that we all kind of deal with in like relationships, and because it brings in a sense of like career into it as well, because you can have a career as a taxidermist but you can't have a career as a cannibal. I don't think so. And like, so you get it kind of like brings it way more into the real world, and yeah, that was kind of to get it there.
I think that was.
I think it's quite hard to say that again.
I think that was a smart switch on your
smart switch.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot more like it's really fun to imagine what happened when the cannibals finally meet. But I think what was exciting about bringing it to taxidermy is that there are all of these sort of really interesting, as I say, desires and reasons for this wanting to take place. Like for Bernie, the idea that he's afraid of aging and afraid of the fact that he's not really come to anything in his life and doesn't really mean anything, which is something that like I think every single person can connect to in some level. And I think the most important thing with dealing with a story like this is really to humanize and to bring these characters into something that feels that they're not monsters, they're just people kind of finding what they're into and what they want, and finding a way to find happiness in some capacity.
100%. It is very existential, like that whole thing of like, am I enough? Like, what has my life amounted to? And then the idea of being like immortalized and loved and like meaning something to somebody, So he gets to have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then there's that, you know, is achieving that ever and I suppose that's the question at the end for her is, oh, I shouldn't reveal that. Should we reveal that it's
like,
no,
if you want to
Spoiler-free,
spoil your movie, I'm not going to spoil it. You're allowed to.
I'm going to leave that bit out.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it comes without spoiling it. It kind of like, I guess it comes to a choice at the end, because I mean, we haven't really said, but the kind of idea is that there's a bit of a spark between them, and between the taxidermist and the guy who wants to be taxidermied, and they sort of like toy with this idea of like, do we go through with this horrible thing, or do we just like be happy and be together? And people have to watch it to find out, I guess.
It's like misfits meeting, and like there's this kindling spark, you know. Which I'm such a sucker for. Also, I was a theater kid growing up in high school, so I knew that I read that this was a musical, but then I guess I forgot by the time I put it on. So like my face, I was just like a meme. Like I was like, okay, great, like the color and the shots, and I'm like, this is all very much like my shit. This is like very whimsically macabre, and I love it. And then the singing starts, and I was like, oh.
That's great to hear. I think like it's an interesting one. Joss and I have just been watching. I mean, we spent a lot of time watching musicals. I was absolutely a theatre kid, and was in lots of amateur dramatics as a little boy, and loved musicals. And we met and really bonded when we were at university over musicals, because it's something that I think people hate. You know, people really dislike musicals, and I do understand the reasons why, because I think that very often it's taken into something that is like a kind of strange pastiche of a musical that doesn't really represent any of the things that I like about musicals. And I think that happens so often, especially in film. Film musicals are so often a strange mix of like what people think a stage musical should be or kind of is, but it just seems to not translate properly at all. Obviously there are great examples, but I think there are lots and lots of bad examples. And I think that, you know, the goal really for us was to try and find a tone of film that we wanted to watch, was to try and find to take the genre of musicals, because it can be a whole wide genre. It's not just one sound, and to sort of develop that into something that feels a little bit darker, and hopefully set it in a visual world and a world that felt a little bit more grounded and much darker. I think that was our kind of our starting point.
Yeah, because we speak quite a lot about like this idea that maybe people don't like musicals because they're very like performative and showy, and like it's very hard, you know, because you want, especially in film, you want to relate to characters and you want to understand characters and you want to kind of take these characters on a journey. But like I think it's quite hard for a lot of people to relate to someone when they're like an amazing singer, like doing an amazing dance, like projecting and all this stuff. And so I think yeah, so we tried to make it sort of a little bit less like that. And I think so we kind of stumbled upon, especially with Anthony, the guy who wants to be taxidermied in it. He, you know, he has a kind of like warbly, untrained voice a little bit that is kind of that I think if he had, I mean, it's a very, very good voice. He's got an amazing range, and like it's a beautiful tone, but it's not quite like if kind of he had been more kind of rigorously trained in his voice more recently, I'm sure they would have hammered out a lot of the things, the kind of like cracks and warbles that I think make it kind of a bit more human and make him feel more sort of like a more like a real person that you can relate to, as opposed to like a theatre kid. No offense to you two, a theatre kid up on stage like doing their thing.
I was thinking about it. There's also a disconnect, because when you go and see musicals live, you are seeing a live performance, and that's what's so exciting about them, is you're seeing someone give everything on that night to give you a live performance. Whereas the strange disconnect with when it moves into cinema is it's almost always lip sync. It's never ever live. It's always twice removed from being live. You're watching a recorded of it. You know what I mean? So I think that there's that disconnect. It's so often so badly seamless. Like it really feels like a step when suddenly someone steps in to sing, and the tone completely changes. And I'm not saying, you know, we didn't record ours live on set. I would have loved to have recorded it live on set, although that would be incredibly problematic. I think the hope was to try and find a way of working the music into the film in a less obvious way, so it didn't feel like there was that kind of big jump into something, which I think is often what you do feel with music. And I think what Joss said about the kind of vulnerability in Anthony's voice was really important for that. As with Alison, who played the taxidermist, they have such an amazing range and kind of subtlety to both of their voices. I think that's what really worked for us.
It added such a charm to it, and especially for his character in particular. Like, it wouldn't have it doesn't lend itself to his character to be like, I'm an amazing, perfectly everything Broadway singer. Like, that's not who that character is. So I think those little
100%.
nuances of the warble and things like that, I'm like, that makes sense for his character as well, and it makes it just that much more charming.
I think for her as well, it's we spoke this before, but it's she definitely kind of her character is one that is, I feel like, one you've seen like 1,000 times in like musicals and stuff. You think of like Mrs. Lovett or the mum from Tangled, any evil stepmother. There's just this sense of like kind of theatrical kind of with the lightning crashes and stuff at the beginning. But I think but Alison's voice, the actor that played the taxidermist, is like just like very, very sweet and like really kind of soaring and beautiful. And I think that just kind of added something that like we didn't necessarily know was part of the character until like we had Alison in the room and we heard her voice, and it was like, oh, it's so pure and sweet. And I think, yeah, so again, like just her tone of voice kind of just brings the character really. Whereas I think
it is always just fascinating because you write, particularly with this process, you write the characters and then you write the songs, and you think you kind of know who they are, and then someone plays them and sings the song for the first time in their own voice. I have to live for so long with, because Joss writes all the lyrics and the songs, and we write the story together, and then I direct. And for ages, I'm getting these songs back with Joss singing, and it's Joss's voice the whole time. And the first time that you hear Alison sing it, it's just like, oh my life.
Like, oh my God, I didn't realize until now what a crap singer Joss is. Now I've got an actual proper singer sing it.
You guys have to release that with like the bonus features. It's Joss's recordings of the song.
No, we've made a whole film where Joss plays both of the characters. It's quite
love it. I'd like to see that one. But also she has that very sweet tone, and she's singing about some like seriously sinister shit. So it's like this weird juxtaposition that also lends itself to the whole tone.
Totally. I think she did an amazing job, Alison. She was an amazing find. I mean, we had no money to make this. It was really it really was a labor of love. And to find her, I was literally, there's a website called Mandy in the UK, which is which I maybe in America as well, I'm not sure, but it's for actors, and there's a whole range on there. Like my mum's on there, so there's like terrible actors like my mum on there who are just trying to find no, I'm joking I'm joking. She'll be listening, so she'll like this.
Wow.
And but no, there's a full, what I mean is there's a full range of abilities on there, and which is great, and that's why it's such an amazing place to find people. But I hunted through for days through every single, I think I had to put an age category on it, but from every single woman from the age of 35 to 60 or something, just trying to find the character and find someone that felt right, because it's so specific. And we were just so lucky to find Alison. She was a real gem.
They were both just so perfectly cast. I feel like I can't imagine it with anything else. And it's funny that you say like people were reading the script like, oh my God, this is insane. Because I'm like, well, yeah, the disconnect, I don't know how dark it would read just reading it as a script. But then watching it, it's quite light. It's dark, but it's presented in a way that's like you said, very palatable.
Yeah. And I think there's lots of things where because as Theo said, we had no money, like there's just a lot of things you have to sort of like, the script has to be like, the film has to be like really malleable to what you've got. So I think, Theo, you said before that like originally maybe we thought about it looking less scary. And we thought about it as being like in a suburban neighborhood or whatever, but yeah, you can talk more about this, but like we found this like abandoned house, and the house is terrifying, and that's kind of what I think gives it. And so we have to go like, oh, okay, so it's going to be a bit more scary than we initially planned. And I think
sorry, no, go.
I was just going to say, and a lot of this journey has been us discovering that it's a horror film, because I think we when we were first programmed, we first screened it at the London Short Film Festival, and when we first like read the program and we saw that we were in the horror category, we were like, what?
Yeah, I know. It has been. I still fight. I don't think it's a horror, but it's a strange one where people. Yeah, I think it's definitely true that you, the whole exciting process of filmmaking is that like, and maybe some people do. I think you start out and you know exactly what you want to achieve, but it's the making of it that is the development. You know, that is the process of development, and so it's only when you start to find people to play these characters and you see them and you hear them that you really learn about the character, and you learn who the character isn't and you learn who the character is. And I think that the look and the look and the production design of the film obviously is something that I'm so pleased with, and we had an amazing art director, Liz, who really helped us kind of build that. But yeah, as Joss said, it was like, I think to begin with, the idea was to try and find something that was a little more kind of hidden in normality, that wasn't quite as macabre and sparse, with something that was a little bit more grounded. But we were incredibly lucky through shooting back in Gloucestershire, where I grew up, to find to be offered this house, which no one had been in for 10 years. And it was just incredible, because the whole thing was covered in cobwebs, to the point where like it was, you couldn't, you know, it was like literally floor to ceiling, like this crisscross of cobwebs. And it was like everything was just faded, and you know, it had so many amazing textures on the walls, so that immediately we had this incredible canvas to work with and to build upon. And that, of course, when you find something like that, the whole film, the whole project has to take a kind of slightly different feel and a different tone, and develops into something else. So yeah, we were very lucky to find that.
That was a major score, because it's like, boom, okay, now this is the world. This is the world that we're working within, and it just works.
Totally. And I mean, we would have loved to, because there were lots of references from the beginning that I had, which were incredibly dilapidated and very, very sort of dark and macabre and grim like this. But to recreate that kind of stuff is just, it's not even something that you can conceive, especially when you have so little money. It's like the prospect of wallpapering and then dirtying down the wallpaper and trying to make something like that is something that you know is only going to look bad if you don't have the money. But I think finding that environment and being able to kind of, that was where it really came to life for us.
It makes it a little bit of. Sorry, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just going to say, I think also shooting in that house is kind of comparable to living in a horror film, because it was like just like being on the set. It was like the amount of the spider situation when the sun started going down. Oof, it was next level. And also the like where we sort of like the room we were doing the makeup in, because the house was so old and stuff, like the floor was kind of like bowing a little bit like this, like under the weight of people, and it was a bit like, this is kind of, I don't know, turning into a horror, the actual making of this.
Yeah, I'm wondering how precarious it was. Like, were you guys ever worried, like, I'm going to take a step and my foot's going to just go through the floor? Or was it like you felt pretty okay?
At this point, I think I was running on blind adrenaline. So I think there were other people that were like,
there was actually a foot through the. There was a foot through the floorboard situation at one point. Remember, there was like not all the way through.
Let's not go into this. I'm not sure. Just in case anyone decides to come back at us with insurance issues.
Just kidding. It was just an FX gag when he made it look like it went through the floor.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
It made it a little more like Norman Bates, though, with that house and everything around it. So it was like Norman Bates and Sweeney Todd elements combining, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely to hear. I think it was that kind of, that macabre reality, like a slightly sparse macabre reality. I think like initially I'd looked at, there's a film by Matthew Holness called Possum, which you might have seen from the UK, which is just like so incredibly grim and dirty, and you just have this immediate disgusting feeling from watching it. I think that, like, in the end, the references were something between kind of Possum and maybe something of like a Roy Andersson film, you know, where it's like the kind of beautiful, bleak sparseness of sparse grayness I just love, you know.
Nice. Yeah, it was kind of I don't remember what I was gonna say. I forgot it.
Happens
I'll
to me all the
remember
time.
Words.
Words, man.
Words are hard.
But I hope as well for a musical fan that there was because there are these moments in it which are my favorite moments in the film where it kind of transitions slightly from this sort of darker tone, and you get these moments of real kind of, you know, with the drums hit, and you know, you get these moments of musical chill, which I think is great.
The music in this is amazing, and that's not easy to do. Like, I love musicals, but it's not, I can't just go out and like make a musical myself because I don't know how well the music is going to come across. But like, the songs in this are very good and very catchy. Like, I would totally have this soundtrack and sing along to it. Like, I loved it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, they'll be. I'm gonna put them on spot. I've got them mastered so they can be on Spotify soon. So I'll send you a link.
Perfect.
But no, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was a bit over ambitious, the soundtrack. It was kind of a lot of work because it sounds like an orchestra, but it's literally just like, this is my crappy bedroom here, and this is my bed, and it was up against the wall, and the musicians just one by one were recording in front of there. And then it was a process of just trying to like just mash it all together in the computer. But luckily we had a very good sound mixer who managed to put it all together and make it sound like it's this, you know, big glammy kind of sound. Yeah.
I did not even think about that part. That's insane to think that there's this, like, I just imagine them like lined up outside of your room with their like giant instruments and then coming in one by one. Okay, next.
It's exactly like that. It was exactly like
nuts.
that. Big double basses,
it was, yeah.
You know, all out the door. Chaos.
Oh, that's
no,
so
I think
fun.
we were very, very lucky with like musicians that played on it and stuff, because they were all way too good for us. And I think I kind of met one, or I got put in contact with this amazing cellist. She's played on like loads of big film soundtracks, and she plays with Anna Meredith and stuff. And she kind of put me in touch with other violinists and stuff. And I remember the first time the violinist came around to record, and he was kind of a bit like he was a little bit like upset maybe, because he was like, I got your email that said this was like a short film, but you sent me through the music and it's bloody loads of pages and it's really difficult music. And I don't know if I could do this for like the mates rate you're asking for. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's just, you know, we'll do like what we can in like an hour, and we'll go from there. And then at the end of the hour, he was packing up his violin, and he said, so what is this film for? And I was like, oh, it's this feature film that I've, you know, co-written. And he's like, oh, you wrote it? And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, can I see any of it? And I showed him a little bit of it, like a little bit, because we'd shot it before we recorded all the instruments. We just kind of shot it to piano backing tracks. And I showed him the kind of more grisly scenes at the end. And he was just like, that is so cool. and so then he got his violin back out and just started just agreed to record again. And I think that's the case for like a lot of people that worked on this film. It was like we were asking kind of, it was a bit over ambitious for the budget we had, but people seemed to really like the idea, and kind of once they kind of got on board, so we across the whole board we managed to get people that were like so much better than we deserved and could afford. And yeah.
I love to hear stories of when it just is all coming together like that, and everyone's like, you know what? Yeah, just let me bust out my violin again. And that could have gone one of two ways, really. You showed him like the grisly bits. He could have been like, "What the shit? Okay, I'm packing up and leaving right now."
Got it. I was between him and the door at this point. So.
It's totally true, though. I think that when you making shorts like this, you know, they're really, when you have no money, it's what happens is you get this really lovely family feeling to the whole thing, because everyone that is there has to enjoy the project because there is no money and it is long hours. And so it really becomes one of those really nice communities and families of people that, you know, that you have this intense week together making this project, and then you finish. So it's lovely.
Absolutely. It also helps when you're like, I love this so much and I appreciate you so much for helping with this. And then people are like, okay, I'll give you a little more.
Yeah, 100%. You gotta do that.
All right. You guys have anything else you'd like to add? That's all I've got for you.
No, I'm just really glad you enjoyed it. And I hope that, yeah, that's
also,
it. No.
It's nice to hear. I think it's nice for both of us to hear that a music, we haven't spoke to that many people about it so far, but it's nice to hear that a musical fan enjoyed it, because I think a lot of people so far have been like, I don't like musicals, but this was good. I like this. So it's kind of quite nice to hear that someone who has been in musical theatre and enjoyed that kind of world also likes it.
Coming from a musical nerd, I fucking loved it. Like I was like, this is so
great.
cool.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I'm going to champion the hell out of this. Do you guys know when it's screening at South by Southwest?
Yeah, it starts tomorrow. So I think it's 8 p.m. CT time, Central time, and then 1 a.m. So we've got to stay up really early UK time to watch it. But yeah, awesome. And then it's on all week in South by Southwest, and it will be online, available online for free in the coming month.
Don't plug that part.
Okay, no.
Buy your tickets.
Buy your tickets. Yeah, buy tickets.
There you go.
I think we're not under any ideas that anyone is going to buy a South by Southwest pass for however much it costs just to see our like 18-minute musical.
Okay, well if you're already at South by Southwest,
if you're already at South by Southwest, please see our shorts.
Stuffed. Check it out.
Stuffed.
All right, thank you guys so much. This was really fun, and congratulations and good luck on everything. I'm so excited for like more eyeballs and ears to like consume all of this goodness.
Really lovely to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for getting involved with us.
Absolutely. All right. Bye. Thank you.
See you later.
Thanks,
bye.
Angel. Bye.